Imagine standing outside the incredibly historic, deeply legendary London Palladium, a massive, highly prestigious venue that has exclusively hosted the absolute greatest, most iconic musical legends in the entire history of global entertainment. For a newly crowned reality television star, simply securing a single night at this massive theatrical cathedral is considered an absolute, impossible miracle. But Matty Juniosa did not just secure a single night. He completely shattered massive box office records, violently forcing the highly conservative theater executives to completely rewrite their strict scheduling rules. This is the incredibly dramatic, entirely unprecedented true story of how a fiercely independent, openly queer Filipino artist took absolute control of the British theatrical establishment. We are going to deeply explore the absolute, undeniable truth behind why the highly prestigious London Palladium just made the incredibly rare, massive decision to forcefully extend Matty Juniosa's explosive live show. To truly comprehend the absolute, terrifying magnitude of this massive theatrical extension, we must first deeply understand the incredible, heavily guarded prestige of the legendary London Palladium. For over a century, this massive, highly intimidating venue has served as the absolute ultimate proving ground for the greatest, most fiercely talented entertainers on the entire planet. Global icons like Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, and Shirley Bassey have all famously graced this exact same historic stage, leaving an incredibly heavy, suffocating legacy that completely terrifies most modern performers. It is absolutely not a venue that easily hands over its highly coveted stage to fleeting internet sensations or highly disposable reality television winners. The highly traditional, deeply conservative executives who meticulously control the Palladium program are notoriously ruthless, exclusively demanding absolute, undeniable theatrical perfection and guaranteed massive ticket sales before even considering a booking. For a brand new artist completely fresh off the chaotic reality television circuit to be heavily trusted with headlining this massive, incredibly historic cathedral of entertainment is a massive, highly unprecedented anomaly. The initial, highly cautious booking of Matty Juniosa was already considered a massive, highly dangerous industry gamble, a complete shock to the traditional British theatrical establishment that completely expected him to quietly fade into absolute obscurity. The massive, heavily documented reality television curse dictates that artists who experience a massive, overnight viral explosion on shows like Britain's Got Talent are usually completely incapable of sustaining long-term, highly lucrative touring careers. The highly cynical, heavily manufactured mainstream music industry entirely expects these rapidly manufactured stars to briefly capitalize on their fleeting television fame with a few heavily discounted, highly generic local theater performances before completely vanishing from the public eye. When Matty was initially heavily booked for a highly limited, highly exclusive engagement at the prestigious Palladium, the most vicious, highly influential theater critics in London eagerly sharpened their knives. They completely expected a highly amateur, heavily overproduced variety show relying entirely on cheap, highly nostalgic reality television gimmicks and generic cover songs. The immense, suffocating pressure to completely prove his absolute artistic legitimacy to a highly skeptical, deeply traditional theatrical community was incredibly overwhelming. He was not simply fighting to sell a few theater tickets. He was desperately, aggressively fighting for his absolute professional survival in a deeply hostile, highly unforgiving entertainment capital. Every single major industry executive was actively watching, completely expecting his highly anticipated Palladium debut to be a massive, completely devastating financial and artistic failure that would permanently destroy his career. Instead of completely caving to the immense, highly toxic pressure to deliver a safe, universally appealing, highly sanitized commercial pop concert, Matty Juniosa made a massive, incredibly dangerous creative decision. He completely rejected the traditional, highly predictable reality television victory tour format, fiercely refusing to simply recreate his viral television moments for passive, nostalgic audiences. Instead, he meticulously crafted a highly ambitious, deeply, intensely personal theatrical masterpiece that violently blurred the lines between a high-energy rock concert and a deeply profound, highly emotional autobiographical confession. He completely transformed the massive, historic Palladium stage into a highly intimate, deeply vulnerable psychological mirror, utilizing completely breathtaking vocal arrangements, highly avant-garde stage production, and his own fiercely original, completely unfiltered music. He bravely integrated his incredibly deep, lifelong passion for high fashion directly into the massive production, heavily utilizing incredibly bold, highly flamboyant costume changes to brilliantly narrate his incredibly traumatic, highly emotional journey from complete national rejection in the Philippines to absolute, undeniable global triumph. This massive, fiercely independent creative vision completely shocked the highly conservative theater producers, who were completely terrified that such an incredibly raw, deeply unapologetic showcase of queer identity would absolutely alienate the traditional West End theater-going audience. When the massive, highly iconic velvet curtains of the London Palladium finally opened on his highly anticipated premiere night, the entire, highly charged atmosphere inside the legendary auditorium was instantly electrified. The incredibly cynical, highly seasoned British theater critics and the massive, heavily expectant audience were completely paralyzed by the sheer, unadulterated force of his massive vocal power. He did not simply perform. He completely commanded the massive, highly intimidating space with the absolute, unshakable authority of a deeply seasoned, legendary musical icon. Every single incredibly powerful, soaring high note completely shattered the highly manufactured, heavily sanitized expectations of the traditional theater establishment, forcing the entire massive crowd to actively bear witness to his incredibly raw, completely unfiltered human soul. The massive, deeply emotional climax of the premiere night resulted in an incredibly rare, completely spontaneous 10-minute standing ovation that literally physically shook the historic foundations of the venue. The notoriously vicious, highly critical London press completely surrendered to his undeniable, massive talent, immediately publishing universally glowing, highly explosive 5-star reviews that completely flooded the global internet. The highly dangerous, fiercely independent artistic gamble had completely, brilliantly paid off, instantly transforming his highly doubted debut into a massive, undeniable theatrical triumph. The immediate, highly chaotic aftermath of that massive, universally acclaimed opening night triggered an incredibly massive, entirely unprecedented global frenzy that completely caught the Palladium executives completely off guard. The highly explosive, entirely organic word of mouth regarding the sheer emotional magnitude of his deeply intimate live performance rapidly spread across the entire digital landscape like a massive, uncontrollable wildfire. Within less than 24 hours of the initial rave, reviews officially hitting the internet, the highly anticipated remaining tickets for his strictly limited theatrical run completely vanished. The massive, unprecedented surge of millions of desperate fans simultaneously attempting to secure a highly coveted seat literally caused a massive, highly publicized digital crash of the primary online ticketing platforms. People were desperately flying in from completely different continents, highly eager to witness the massive, historic vocal powerhouse that had completely dominated the notoriously difficult West End. The massive corporate theater executives, who had initially been incredibly hesitant to even grant him a brief, highly limited residency, were now completely starring at an absolute, undeniable financial goldmine. The massive, deeply frantic public demand was completely outpacing the highly restricted supply, creating an incredibly tense, highly lucrative situation that absolutely demanded immediate, massive industry intervention. In the highly rigid, deeply traditional world of elite British theatre, strictly scheduled programming is almost never violently altered without months of highly complex, incredibly tedious corporate negotiations. The massive London Palladium has a heavily guarded, fiercely strict calendar that is meticulously booked entirely solid for years in advance, completely leaving absolutely no room for spontaneous, massive scheduling adjustments. However, the incredibly massive, completely undeniable financial gravity of Matty Juniosa's explosive box office success forcefully demanded a complete, highly unprecedented suspension of all traditional theatrical protocol. The incredibly powerful, highly influential venue executives were actively forced into an incredibly frantic, highly secretive emergency boardroom, meeting to immediately figure out exactly how to capitalize on this massive, uncontrollable cultural phenomenon. They fundamentally realized that actively denying the massive, deeply frantic public demand would be a complete, highly devastating financial disaster for the prestigious venue. In a massive, completely historic industry maneuver, they completely decided to aggressively rearrange their highly inflexible seasonal calendar, actively moving highly established, fully funded productions specifically to safely accommodate a massive, completely unexpected extension of Matty's highly explosive live show. This incredibly rare, massive corporate concession firmly cemented his absolute, undeniable power within the notoriously difficult entertainment industry. This massive, highly publicized theatrical extension is incredibly profound because it completely represents an absolute, highly triumphant victory for radical, unapologetic human authenticity. The massive entertainment industry constantly demands that highly unique, deeply flamboyant artists severely dilute their incredibly raw identity in order to safely achieve massive, highly lucrative commercial mainstream success. Matty fiercely refused to completely heavily sanitize his incredibly bold, openly queer artistic vision to comfortably appease the deeply conservative, highly traditional expectations of the elite theatrical establishment. He bravely brought his absolute, completely unfiltered reality directly to one of the most incredibly prestigious, highly guarded stages on the entire planet, actively forcing the massive mainstream audience to completely accept him entirely on his own fierce terms. The massive, deeply overwhelming commercial success of this highly extended show completely proves that global audiences are desperately, actively craving genuine, highly vulnerable human connection, rather than the heavily manufactured, highly generic plastic pop routines constantly forced upon them. By fiercely maintaining his absolute, unshakable artistic integrity, he did not just successfully secure a highly lucrative theatrical extension, he completely shifted the massive cultural paradigm, actively proving that absolute, undeniable authenticity is the absolute most powerful, highly profitable asset in the modern music industry. The massive, unprecedented announcement of this highly unexpected London Palladium extension has actively sent a massive, highly disruptive shockwave completely throughout the entire global music and theatrical industry. Highly powerful, deeply influential international promoters and massive global booking agents, who had previously completely dismissed him as a highly fleeting reality television novelty, are now desperately, aggressively scrambling to completely secure his massive signature. His incredible, highly historic success in the notoriously difficult West End has completely transformed his massive global market value overnight, officially elevating him from a highly successful viral contestant directly to a massive, highly bankable international touring powerhouse. The absolute biggest, most highly prestigious theatrical venues completely across the massive United States, including legendary massive arenas in New York and Los Angeles, are actively entering highly aggressive, incredibly lucrative bidding wars to officially secure the massive global rights to host his highly explosive live show. The highly conservative, heavily manufactured corporate entertainment machine completely underestimated the massive, undeniable cultural impact of his fiercely independent artistic vision. He has completely successfully broken completely out of the highly restrictive reality television cage, firmly establishing an incredibly powerful, highly lucrative global empire that is completely immune to the fickle, highly unpredictable nature of fleeting internet trends. Beyond the massive, highly lucrative ticket sales and the incredibly historic, deeply prestigious venue extensions, this massive triumph serves as a profoundly deep, incredibly powerful beacon of absolute hope for every single heavily marginalized artist on the planet. For a deeply sensitive young singer who was once completely, painfully rejected and highly unceremoniously discarded by his own national television industry in the Philippines, forcefully commanding a massive, heavily extended residency at the iconic London Palladium, is the absolute ultimate, highly poetic revenge. His massive, completely unbelievable trajectory actively proves to every single heavily bullied, deeply misunderstood outcast that a highly painful, heavily publicized rejection is absolutely never the final, definitive chapter of their story. He actively utilized the intense, suffocating pain of his past failures as the exact specific, highly volatile rocket fuel required to completely propel his deeply authentic art directly to the absolute highest, most heavily guarded echelons of global entertainment. His incredibly massive, highly historic Palladium extension actively loudly broadcasts an incredibly powerful, completely undeniable global message. The exact same unique, highly flamboyant traits that small-minded critics will aggressively try to heavily completely bully out of you will ultimately become the exact specific foundation upon which you successfully build your entire massive global empire. As the highly anticipated, heavily extended run of his incredibly explosive London Palladium show rapidly approaches its completely massive, highly emotional conclusion, it is absolutely, undeniably clear that this is not merely the beautiful, perfect ending to a highly successful reality television story. It is the incredibly powerful, highly terrifying dawn of a completely new, fiercely independent era for the massive, highly undeniable vocal powerhouse that is Matty Juniosa. He has successfully destroyed the heavily restricted, deeply toxic corporate rulebook, actively proving that a highly authentic, openly queer Filipino artist can completely dominate the highest, most elite levels of the deeply traditional Western theatrical establishment, entirely on his own uncompromising terms. The massive, highly unprecedented extension of this specific historic show firmly solidifies his absolute, undeniable status as a true, permanent fixture in the global entertainment industry. He is no longer desperately begging the massive corporate gatekeepers for a tiny, highly restricted seat at the elite table. He has forcefully built his own massive, heavily guarded castle right in the absolute center of their traditional kingdom. The entire, highly expectant global music industry is now actively waiting in absolute, completely terrified anticipation to finally see exactly what incredibly massive, highly explosive boundary he completely successfully shatters next.